Muhammad Ali's early life and rise to fame. Muhammad Ali was born Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. on January 17, 1942, in Louisville, Kentucky. His early life was shaped by the tensions of a racially segregated America. Raised in a modest household, his father worked as a sign painter, while his mother, Odessa, was a homemaker. Young Cassius had no idea that his future would transcend the narrow streets of his hometown and echo across the world. His journey to greatness began with a moment of youthful defiance. At the age of 12, a robbery rattled Cassius' sense of security. Furious and seeking justice, he marched into a local gym, vowing to teach the thief a lesson in self-defense. It was there that he first met Joe Martin, a local police officer and boxing trainer, who saw potential in the fiery young boy. Under Martin's guidance, Cassius began to learn the discipline of boxing. His speed and agility quickly set him apart, but it wasn't just his physical prowess that captivated the people around him. It was his spirit, a mixture of arrogance and unshakable self-belief. From an early age, Cassius declared that he would be the greatest of all time. His words were bold and brash, but as he honed his skills, they became prophetic. He won the Golden Gloves in 1959 and 1960, and by the time he was 18, he had earned a spot in the 1960 Rome Olympics. It was here, in the shadow of the Colosseum, that Cassius would etch his name into history with a victory that would set the stage for everything that followed. The Olympics were a crucible for Cassius. Every punch thrown was more than a fight for victory. It was a fight for recognition, a way for the young man to demand the respect he felt was due to him. His triumph in Rome was not just a personal achievement, but a defiance of the racial prejudices that plagued America. The gold medal he won was a symbol of both his talent and his unyielding belief that he was destined for more than what the world had expected of him. Yet, his return to Louisville was far from a hero's welcome. In a time when racial injustice was rampant, Cassius found himself grappling with the harsh realities of a segregated society. He was greeted not with open arms, but with closed doors, restaurants that refused him entry, stores that denied him service. This racism fueled his fire, propelling him forward with a determination that only the oppressed can understand. By the time he turned 22, Cassius had become a household name. His victory over Sonny Liston in 1964, a fighter regarded as invincible, catapulted him to international fame. In that moment, Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali, a name chosen in honor of his Muslim faith and his newfound sense of purpose. His rise was not just about boxing, it was about redefining what it meant to be a black man in America, a champion of both sport and social change. But this was only the beginning. Ali's journey was far from smooth. The young man who had brashly declared himself the greatest would soon find that the price of greatness was more than he could ever have anticipated. As the world celebrated his victory, darker forces began to gather, testing not only his strength but his character. The conflict had just begun. The transformation into Muhammad Ali, the boxer and the activist. As Muhammad Ali's star rose, so did the whispers of change within him. The world knew him as a brash, talented boxer, but beneath the bravado lay a man grappling with the weight of his own identity. In 1964, just after he defeated Sonny Liston to claim the heavyweight title, Cassius Clay shocked the world by announcing that he had converted to Islam. The man who had once boasted of his greatness now found himself adopting a new name, one that would resonate far beyond the confines of the boxing ring: Muhammad Ali. This was not a simple religious conversion. It was a declaration of independence, an act of defiance against the pressures of white America, and an affirmation of his faith. Ali's conversion to Islam was deeply influenced by his relationship with Malcolm X, the fiery and outspoken leader of the Nation of Islam. Under Malcolm's guidance, Ali found a purpose that extended beyond boxing. He was not just fighting for gold or glory, but for a larger cause, for the liberation and dignity of black people in America. But with this newfound purpose came conflict. The world was divided. Many of Ali's fans embraced the change, while others, particularly in the white mainstream, were bewildered and angered. The boldness that made him a champion in the ring now alienated him from a country that still clung to its prejudices. To many, Ali's refusal to conform was a threat. He was no longer simply a boxer. He was a symbol of resistance, and for some, that was more dangerous than anything he could ever do in the ring. The conflict reached its peak in 1967, when the United States was embroiled in the Vietnam War. Ali, by then a global figure, was called upon to serve his country in the military. However, Ali, steadfast in his beliefs, refused. He explained that, as a Muslim, he did not believe in fighting a war against people who had done him no harm. "I ain't got no quarrel with the Viet Cong," he famously declared. His words were powerful, cutting through the noise of patriotic fervor and racial animus, but they came with a steep price. The government swiftly stripped Ali of his boxing titles and banned him from the sport. The same man who had once proudly declared himself the greatest was now vilified, branded as a traitor and a coward. His refusal to be drafted, rooted in his deep spiritual convictions, turned him into a pariah. The world seemed to turn its back on him, and yet, in his heart, Ali knew he had made the right choice. In a moment of great sacrifice, he had chosen to stand for what he believed in, to defy the forces of war and oppression. In the years that followed, Ali would be subjected to both public scorn and admiration. But with each passing year, the world began to understand that this was no longer just about boxing. Ali had become something much more, an icon, a revolutionary, and a voice for those who had long been silenced. Yet, as he stood in the shadow of this newfound role, Ali's journey was far from over. The battles he faced would not just be against his opponents in the ring, but against a society that was unwilling to embrace his truth. And as the world watched, the question remained: would the boxer who had defied the odds in the ring also be able to conquer the larger battle that lay ahead? Muhammad Ali's greatest fights, triumphs and struggles in the ring. As the world cast its doubts on Muhammad Ali, he stepped back into the ring with a resolve that would define his legacy. His exile from boxing had left a bitter taste in the mouths of many, but Ali's return was not just a fight for titles. It was a battle for his identity, a struggle to reclaim the right to be the greatest, not just in sport, but in spirit. In 1970, after a long and painful hiatus, Ali's suspension was lifted. His return was met with both excitement and trepidation. The world had not seen him in action for over 3 years. He was no longer the same young, brash boxer who had once dominated the heavyweight division. The world had changed, and so had Ali. The man who once proclaimed, "I am the greatest," now faced his own vulnerability. Could he still fight? Could he still be the champion he once was? Ali's first major test upon his return was against the formidable Jerry Quarry in 1970. Though his legs were slower and his rhythm less sharp, the fire that burned inside him remained untouched. In a bout that seemed to echo the sentiment of his entire career, Ali triumphed. He defeated Quarry decisively, not with the raw power of his youth, but with the cunning and experience he had gained from years of struggle and reflection. Ali had proven that he was more than just his physical abilities. His mind, too, had become a weapon. He had reinvented himself, and the boxing world had no choice but to take notice. Yet, his greatest test was still ahead. The legendary Rumble in the Jungle, against George Foreman in 1974, would go down as one of the most iconic moments in boxing history. Foreman was a monster in the ring, a powerhouse who had demolished every opponent in his path. The world was certain that Ali, now in his early 30s, was too old, too slow, and too worn to defeat such a brutal force. But Ali, as he often did, defied the expectations. With his famous rope-a-dope strategy, he allowed Foreman to wear himself out, leaning against the ropes and taking blow after blow, all the while absorbing the punishment with a calm and almost eerie composure. Foreman, fatigued and frustrated, lost his edge. In the 8th round, Ali struck, delivering a series of punches that sent Foreman crashing to the canvas. The world gasped in awe. Ali had done it. He had reclaimed the title in one of the most masterful displays of mental and physical resilience the sport had ever seen. But it wasn't just the victory over Foreman that defined Ali. It was the struggle, the mental warfare that he waged both in and outside the ring. The Thriller in Manila, against Joe Frazier in 1975, was another grueling contest that pushed Ali to his limits. Frazier, relentless and brutal, took Ali to the brink of exhaustion. Their fight was a brutal exchange of punches, a battle for dominance. In the end, Ali's indomitable will won out. Frazier, bloodied and broken, could not continue, and Ali emerged victorious, though barely able to stand. These battles, these triumphs, were not just about boxing titles. They were about proving to the world that Ali's greatest strength was not his fists, but his will to overcome. In the ring, as in life, Ali fought not only for victory but for a legacy that would endure long after his gloves were hung up for good. And as he stood, bloodied but unbroken, the world realized that Ali was not just a boxer. He was a symbol of defiance, resilience, and the unwavering power of the human spirit. Legacy: Muhammad Ali's impact on society and future generations. As Muhammad Ali entered the later years of his life, his battles were no longer confined to the ring. The same man who had defied the world with his fists now stood at the center of a different kind of fight, a fight against the ravages of Parkinson's disease. Diagnosed in 1984, Ali's health began to decline, but his spirit remained unbroken. If anything, the disease added layers to his already profound legacy, turning him from a champion in the ring to a global symbol of endurance and resilience. Despite his physical decline, Ali's influence never waned. He became a living testament to the power of the human will. The same man who had once floated like a butterfly and stung like a bee now moved with the stiffness of a warrior who had paid the price for his victories. Yet even in his condition, he was a beacon of hope for millions. His public appearances were filled with both awe and reverence. People came from all over the world not to witness the boxer, but to honor the man who had fought so many battles, both physical and societal. His commitment to humanitarian causes only deepened in his later years. Ali traveled the world as a global ambassador, speaking out against injustice and using his fame to shine a light on causes that mattered. His work in the Middle East, his efforts to fight hunger and disease, and his unwavering stance on civil rights further solidified his place in history as more than just a boxer. Ali was a symbol of the power of one voice, of standing up for what is right, regardless of the consequences. Yet, as Ali's health continued to deteriorate, the world held its breath. The man who had once danced across the canvas was now confined to a world of silence, struggling to maintain the brilliance that had once made him the greatest. It was in these moments, as he struggled to speak and move, that his legacy became clearer than ever. Muhammad Ali's true greatness lay not in his victories, but in his ability to rise after every defeat, to inspire, to lead, and to make the world a better place for those who followed in his footsteps. His death on June 3, 2016, marked the end of an era, but his legacy endures. The world remembers Muhammad Ali not just for his unparalleled skill in the ring, but for his courage, his ability to stand firm in his beliefs, and his unwavering dedication to fighting for justice. In every corner of the world, people carry the lessons he taught, that it is not the battles you win that define you, but the way you stand up when everything is against you. As the years pass, Ali's influence continues to resonate. Future generations still look to him as a role model, not just for his prowess in boxing, but for his strength of character. He is remembered not as a man who sought fame, but as a man who used his fame to ignite change.